Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're actually going to do something a little different. We're taking a deep dive into the absolute nuts and bolts of the English language. But we're not just going to sit here reading from a dusty old grammar textbook. No way. We're turning this into a highly gamified 3-stage challenge. We're going to test your instincts, decode some of the hidden rules of English, and figure out exactly where your proficiency stands right now. By the end of this, you won't just know if your answers were right or wrong. You're going to understand exactly why the language works the way it does. So here's our level map for today's explainer. First up, Stage 1, the fundamentals. Then Stage 2, tricky tenses. After that, Stage 3, nuance and vocabulary. And finally, Stage 4, tallying your final score. Let's get right into it.
All right, Stage 1, beginner, the fundamentals.
Okay, here's your very first challenge. Listen closely.
Are you going blank London next week?
Your options are to or in. I'm going to give you just a split second to lock in your guess. So which preposition actually belongs there when we're talking about future travel plans? Well, if you chose to, you absolutely nailed it. The correct sentence is, are you going to London next week? Here's the crucial thing you got to remember. To is literally the mandatory preposition of direction in English. Whenever you're physically moving from one place to another, you always use to. We don't say we're moving in a destination, right? Because in kind of implies you're already just hanging out there, totally stationary. To is all about that movement. All right, let's see how you handle this next one. We're building up that structural muscle now. Blank, she make an apple cake. Your choices are how does or does how. Go ahead and lock it in. This one is really testing your gut instinct for word order, which, let's be honest, can feel incredibly clunky and unnatural if English isn't your native language.
The correct phrase is, how does? How does she make an apple cake? Look, if you just memorize these 4 specific steps, it's like a cheat code. You'll build a flawless question every single time. Step 1, you start with your question word, how. Step 2, your auxiliary verb, does. Step 3, the subject, she. And finally, step 4, the main verb, make. Honestly, once you start seeing this exact pattern, making questions just becomes automatic math. There's zero guesswork involved.
Moving right along to Stage 2, intermediate, tricky tenses.
Okay, things are going to get a little tougher now. The margins for error are definitely shrinking here. This right here is a classic trap that catches so many language learners. The sentence is, I blank Mary last night. And your options are didn't see or haven't seen. So you've got to choose between the past simple and the present perfect. Both technically refer to the past, but only one actually fits this exact sentence. What's your pick? Okay, the correct answer is didn't see. I didn't see Mary last night. The absolute key to avoiding this trap is that little phrase at the end, last night. See, if we know the exact time something happened in the past, say yesterday, in 1999, or, last night, we are strictly required to use the past simple. On the flip side, we use the present perfect, like haven't seen, when that exact time in the past is either totally unknown or just not important to the story. And this perfectly illustrates exactly why that rule exists in the first place. Think of the past simple as dropping a pin on a very specific point on the left side of a timeline. The action is totally anchored to that exact known time, completely cut off from the present. The present perfect, though, it's way looser. It kind of just floats somewhere back there in the past, but it keeps this invisible string attached to the current moment on the right. Because last night is a specific pin drop, we just have to use past simple. All right, let's bump up the difficulty a bit more. When he was a child, he blank play chess. Is it used to or got used to? Now, both of these sound vaguely like they're talking about habits, right? But mechanically speaking, they do 2 completely different things in a sentence.
Well, the answer is used to. When he was a child, he used to play chess. Let's actually compare these 3 highly confusing structures side by side, because it helps a ton to visualize them. First, used to. That just means a past habit, something you did back in the day but you don't do anymore. Then you have be used to, which means a current habit. It's something you're completely accustomed to right now, like saying, I am used to jogging. And finally, get used to means the actual process of making something a habit. Since our sentence was specifically about when he was a child, it's a closed, done and dusted past habit, so you absolutely must use used to.
All right, we've made it to the final boss. Stage 3, advanced, nuance, and vocabulary. Okay, here's a really tricky adjective challenge for you. We were really blank with the weather. Did you fall into the trap on this one? Are we disappointing with the weather, or are we disappointed with the weather? Just changing that ending from ed to ing literally shifts the entire dynamic of the sentence.
If you said disappointed, you got it. We were really disappointed with the weather. Here is the golden rule you need to remember. Words ending in ed, like disappointed, describe your internal state of mind. It's how you feel because your hopes weren't met. On the other hand, words ending in ing, like disappointing, describe the external thing that actually causes that feeling. So the weather itself was disappointing, which is exactly what made you feel disappointed. Make sense?
Okay, here is your final high-level vocabulary challenge. I heard a blink outside, so I went to the window. I saw 4 men in the street arguing. Based purely on that context of those men arguing, which word fits perfectly? Is it a burial, a coincidence, or a commotion?
The answer is commotion. By definition, a commotion is a sudden, short period of noise, confusion, or excited movement. And this is exactly why reaching that advanced level of English relies so heavily on mastering precise vocabulary. I mean, sure, you could just use a basic word like sound here, but commotion, that perfectly paints the picture of the loud noise and those arguing men all in one super efficient package.
And with that, let's move to our last section, Stage 4, tallying your final score.
All right, let's see how you did. If you easily nailed the preposition and word order questions, fantastic. You've successfully mastered the fundamentals. If you managed to navigate those tricky past simple and present perfect traps without breaking a sweat, you're firmly in the intermediate zone. And if you perfectly parsed those ed versus ing psychological adjectives and that high-level vocabulary question, well, you are clearly demonstrating advanced nuance. But remember, assessing your proficiency isn't really just about racking up a high score. It's about figuring out exactly which mechanics you need to focus on next.
So what is your next level going to be? Look, I want to leave you with this thought today. Learning a language isn't just about memorizing endless boring lists of vocabulary words. As we've seen throughout this explainer, it is actually this beautiful ongoing game of pattern recognition. Once you start to see the matrix, the formulas, the timelines, the underlying structural logic, literally everything changes. So what structural pattern are you going to decode next? Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next